Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund International is dedicated to the conservation and protection of gorillas and their habitats in Africa. To be able to accomplish our mission, we have developed an integrated conservation model which has 4 pillars. The first one is daily protection. Daily protection is done through the presence of our staff in the park. So we have trackers who go to the park 365 days a year. Their work is basically to monitor the gorillas, to follow each and every gorilla groups that we are in charge of. Also, we have 2 dedicated anti-poaching teams who are in the forest also every day, removing snares and other threats to gorillas and other animals of the park. Second one is scientific research. We are the world's longest running research center. We have been studying mountain gorillas for over 50 years. Our research work doesn't focus only on the gorillas, but also biodiversity of the park. So we want to be able to understand the gorillas and their ecosystem. Information that comes out of the research that we do really informs conservation policies in this country. Pillar number 3 is training of future conservation leaders. We're able to reach over 400 students from higher learning institutions in Rwanda. The work that we do is basically to provide skills to young scientists that would really enable them to continue the work of the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. Our 4th pillar is helping communities. This is important because we know effective conservation requires support of local communities. We work closely with communities who live close to the gorilla habitat, and we support their education, health, and also provide alternatives, because some of these communities are affected by poverty and they depend on park resources. So we want to be able to provide alternatives so that they don't go in the park. It is such a great honor to be the first Rwandan director of Karisoche Research Center, to follow in the footsteps of Dian Fossey and all these other great scientists, all these other great conservationists. But I'm not the only Rwandan who works at Karisoche Research Center. In fact, 98% of all our staff are Rwandan.
2 videos today. Hello. Chat. Yes, everybody at Trainwrecks TV, right? We're doing a gorilla podcast today. Don't actually do that. Okay, I'm very, very excited for today. I had a test call with our guest. She's absolutely lovely. She's based out of the UK, so it's evening for her, but I'm excited that she's coming on. She was recommended to us by Dr. Dobby, is a friend of his, and they met in Rwanda. Warm Jackets, thank you for the sub. Grim, thank you for the $3. Appreciate it. Oh, geez. Conch with $23.71. Thank you so much. And Koopa, again, with $77.77. Okay, so today we're talking to Dr. Robin Morrison. She is a postdoc researcher, and she studies gorilla social behavior, social complexity, territoriality, and the evolution of cooperation in gorillas. During her postdoc, she was splitting her time between the Congo and Cambridge doing this research, so she has a lot of really, really interesting experience. And I'm really excited to learn about it. I read some of her research this morning, and it is fascinating. Fascinating. Thank you for the $10, Nicholas. Opossum with $10. One of the things that I read that I thought was really interesting that I'm excited to learn about is they've, on this website, or on the website from her research, it says some gorilla social bonds may be analogous to old friendships and tribes in humans, says researchers. So we're going to talk to her about how complex the social dynamics between gorillas are. Thank you for the 4 months. And Kenny with $20. Jeez. All right. So you guys saw the two videos that I played this morning. I wanted to more donos. Adam with $3. Thank you so much. Lazy with $5. Thank you so much. They're coming in a little slow. Sorry. Morning. Sorry. It feels like morning because it's like gloomy outside, I think. It's like not ridiculously hot in Texas. So I don't know. Lazy, thank you for the $5. And Warber with $20. Thank you so much. Okay, $172 is going to the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. If that name sounds familiar, it's because Sweaty with $30. If that name sounds familiar, it's because this is the organization that Dobbins selected for, it was Dobbins, right? I think. Dobbins, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it was Dobbins. So we've raised money for them before. And I'm absolutely thrilled about raising money for them again. They're the world's largest and longest running organization fully dedicated to gorilla conservation. But not only do they do gorilla conservation, they do much more. And you saw it in those videos from the intro. They do daily protection. They do research. They educate conservationists within those countries. Dis, thank you for the $5. Hide Rager with $50. Hide Rager with $50 and Dis with $5. Thank you so much. One of the reasons that I love this organization so much, that Dobbins does, and why Dr. Morrison does, is because they understand the importance of working with local communities in being effective in conservation, in sustainable conservation. So that piece where they're helping communities, where they're getting in schools, where they're educating conservationists locally is super, super important. And I had a conversation with Dobbins about this the other day, and that's a piece that's missing in conservation quite often, because when it comes to conservation, the research is not enough to make the changes that we need. Cindy, thank you for the $5. So for the podcast today, I'm sure there will be lots of questions. It's a super, super interesting topic. If you have questions, Nick, thank you for the $5. If you have questions, you can do #ask followed by your question. It'll send it into a document for me. Alex, thank you for the $20. It'll send it to a document for me, so I can ask, or I can relay those questions to Robin while we're having our conversation. Speaking of the conversation, at the end of the podcast, there is a quiz. The quiz is based on the conversation and what we learned within this hour today with Dr. Morrison. It's 5 questions. There are 20 seconds per question. The way that you win the quiz is if you answer right the fastest, then you win. Springy, thank you for the $10. But there's no penalty if you don't do well on the quiz. You don't even have to participate in the quiz. But if you do, if you win, if you're LT with $20, if you win, you get a gifted sub to my channel if you're not already subbed. If you are already subbed, I will gift you a sub to a channel of your choice, or you can ask me to donate an additional $5 to the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund today. Mig, thank you for the tier 1 Crowway with $6. Thank you. Appreciate that. Pablo from the Backyardigans tipped $5. Love that. Thank you so much. You don't get banned if you lose the quiz. Don't listen to SG. Okay. And Esmond with $26.72. That's huge. Thank you so much. Huge donations today. Thank you. So these donations are going, again, it says it right there. You can do Command Org if you want more information about where your donations are going. You can do Command Guest if you'd like to be taken to Robin's socials. Another fun thing about the podcast today is, oh my god, Echo Scope with $100. Echo! Thank you so much. Holy shit. Another fun thing about the podcast today is Robin has sent quite a few pictures for us to look at. So some of our conversation will be based off of the photos that she sent, and there are also some videos that we may watch along the way. Josh, thank you for the 10. So there may be a little bit less time for questions today. It may be less like just answering viewer questions and more like looking through pictures, but I think that'll be really fun too. So I'm looking forward to that. Razor, thank you for the $20. Holy moly. And Shut Up Leonard with $20. And we've hit our $500 donation goal before I've called up Robin. Speaking of which, are we ready to call up Robin? Am I missing anything? It looks like the hypers is coming out of the microphone. That's fun. No? We're good to go. Okay. Give me a minute. I will be back with Dr. Morrison. Thank you for the donos. Hello.
How's it going?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good.
Alright, chat, you gotta tell me how the audio is. I didn't hear an echo earlier. She's a little loud. Okay, I'll turn you down.
Oh,
No, you're fine. Better? Are we good?
I should probably say something, shouldn't
Yeah. Could you turn me down a little bit on your computer? Because I can hear myself now.
Yes, you're talking to me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay,
Killer,
is that better?
I think so. Killer, thank you for the $30 donation. Jeez. We're getting donations really, really fast today. Ham was $75. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I gave them a short introduction. We watched 2 of those videos that you sent, of the overview, and then the second Dian Fossey video. And then I kind of introduced you and what you do, but I would love it if you did it because I'm sure you could do it better.
I mean, I heard a little bit of it. It sounded
pretty okay, good.
But yeah, so I've been studying gorillas, I guess, for the last 6 years now. I basically finished my undergrad degree and headed off to the forest to study gorillas.
Very cool.
Pretty fun, and I loved it, so I kept going. But really, I study kind of all of their social behaviors. So they kind of live in family groups. So I look at kind of all of the different social dynamics going on in those groups, but then also how those different groups socialize with each other. So how they share their space, and like when they interact with each other, and when they're kind of aggressive to each other, and when they're like nice to each other, all that sorts of stuff. And I do it to look at a little bit about kind of understanding gorillas better, a little bit kind of understanding about social relationships in animals generally, and like why kind of friendships evolved. What is the kind of the benefit to having friends? And there's so many of them.
So
and then
interesting.
kind of human social behavior. So we're kind of pretty special, pretty unique, that we have like all of these friends across all of the world and all these different places, and we like cooperate in a way that you just don't see in other animals. So I'm looking at kind of what elements do we actually see in gorillas, because they're so closely related to us, and what kind of things are like unique to humans, and where to kind of are really like unusual social behaviors, where do they come from, and what do we have in common with other animals.
That's so neat. Wicked just tipped $100. Wicked, thank you so much. So speaking of which, we're at $710.20 for the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. Can you? It's crazy, huh? It happens super fast. I know. That's what I'm saying.
That's amazing.
So why'd you pick this organization? You do some work with, or you do a lot of work with them, right?
Yes. Yeah. So at the moment, I get to work with them full time, which I love.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, they're the real in terms of kind of gorilla conservation, they were there from kind of the very beginning, and they've really like one of the most successful primate conservation charities there is. So when you look at kind of the stories of primate conservation around the world, it's mostly quite sad, and that's really because people are having to deal with so many difficult situations going on. But one of the things I love about the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund is that they've found a way to kind of involve communities and kind of the government of Rwanda and everyone together. And it's actually managed to kind of increase gorilla numbers within the last few decades. We're building towards this kind of sustainable population, which is really exciting. But they're also kind of then working with a lot of other charities to look at how they can use what they've learned and their kind of successful conservation within Rwanda and expand it. So now in the last 10 years, they've been working with Growers gorillas a lot too. And Growers gorillas, they're really struggling. So I think there's just under 4,000 of them left in the wild now. But that's like 80% less than they used to be. So kind of 20 years ago, there were like 20,000. And so they're declining really, really rapidly. And so it's kind of using their expertise and kind of the talents that they've got in Rwanda to then kind of try and use that somewhere else and help another population of gorillas that's really struggling. So lots of great things going on there.
Yeah,
I can tell you the money will be very well spent.
Good. They're a wonderful organization. It's actually the same organization that Dr. Dobbins selected when he was on the podcast, which is awesome. So the community knows of them kind of, but it's been a while since we talked about them. The growler gorillas, are those the ones that you sent in these DMs, or are those different?
Yes. So they were in the second video. That was all about the Growers gorillas. But I've actually not worked with the Growers gorillas. I've worked with 2 different species of gorilla, but not yet with the Growers gorillas. But I'm hoping in the next kind of few years I'll be able to go over. So they only live in Democratic Republic of Congo. And the Fossey Fund works in an area there where they really protect their habitat. But they're actually not a habituated group there. So the gorillas that they work with there aren't used to humans. And so you can't just kind of walk up to them and observe their behavior. Mm-hmm. So the way they study them there is really exciting, because they kind of follow along the trails from the day before and like look at where they've been and what food they've been eating, but they don't kind of habituate them to human contact, because that can actually be really dangerous for the gorillas themselves too. Mm-hmm. So if people aren't there to kind of protect them and they're used to human contact, then that can put them in quite dangerous situations.
Okay. But so you studied gorillas in the Congo. Is it this video, the Vimeo one? And I don't really want to try to pronounce the name because I'm going to absolutely butcher it. The clearing.
Yes. Yes. So this is Mbele Bai.
Okay.
It's really cool place I got to go, and you'll see it kind of in the video. And this is Western lowland gorillas. And it's basically this clearing in the middle of this really dense forest, and you come out into this amazing clearing, and what we do is we sit there and we watch all the gorillas that come into the clearing. So it's really different to kind of everywhere else I've worked with gorillas. But instead of trekking through the forest to try and find the gorillas, you just kind of sit and wait for the gorillas to come to you, which is crazy.
That's so neat. I have the video up right now, playing it. So what were your days like when you would do the research out here?
Really weird. Honestly, it was. I was there for like 4 months, and it was the strangest 4 months of my life. But we were camping on this platform, and there was like a top level to the platform where we'd do all the observations, and then there was a level underneath where we'd have our tents. So I'd wake up in the morning at like 6 a.m. when it got light, and sometimes I'd like open up my tent and look out, and you could just see elephants like walking past in the clearing.
That's so cool.
Insane. But that was also really stressful because you wake up at 6 and go, oh, the elephants are already here. So then we'd like scramble up to the top deck and try and identify. So we had to individually identify all of the elephants that used the clearing, and then also all of the gorillas. And the gorillas are quite nice. So the gorillas are kind of like us. They're like 6 a.m. is a little bit early for them. You know, the sun comes up, they wake up slowly. They might wander into the clearing by like 9 or 10.
Mm-hmm.
But the elephants are like super early. So they were always stressful. We'd be like up at 6, IDing all the elephants. And then it would suddenly get to kind of 8. We'd be like, okay, the elephants are done. We can maybe have some breakfast. We'd have some breakfast, you know, chat a little bit and see if any gorillas turn up soon. That was really weird. And some days like nothing would turn up, and then other days there'd be like some gorillas in one corner and some elephants in another corner, and then another gorilla group comes in, and it's just mayhem because there's usually kind of 2 or 3 of us on this platform trying to ID all of the different animals, and trying to do it all at once. And there's like one really good camera, and you want to try and get a really good camera and make sure you've like got a shot of everyone, so you checked which gorillas are there and which elephants are there, and you can develop photos. But yeah, it was total mayhem, but also like really peaceful and lovely as well. And
that video is beautifully made too. That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, like all of the animals that I got to see there, yeah, it was amazing. Really, really good place.
We got so Bradders with $50, Ehas with $40, Frozen with $3, so $768. Thank you so much. So were you studying elephant social behavior as well?
Yeah, so a little bit.
Okay.
I went there for the gorillas, but really, like, you study the animals that are there, and the gorillas come and the elephants come. And so I am working on a project on the elephant social behavior too, because they're quite interesting. So the elephants there are forest elephants, and so we really know almost nothing about forest elephants because they basically live in this really dense forest, so they're really hard to study, and they move in really small groups, maybe kind of. It's usually just a mother and maybe 1 or 2 offspring, and then the males move separately. And so we really know almost nothing about them. And there's a few studies where people have put collars on them, so GPS trackers to see where they go. But other than that, we just know nothing about them. So what we do know can be from these forest clearings like Umbeli, where we can see what they do when they're in this clearing. So we can say, okay, we know we've got like some clues as to what's going on.
Are these the tents that you stayed in? The picture that you sent?
Oh, let me out. Which pictures?
Is this the one like in the middle of the forest? There's like a blue tarp. Yeah, there's a blue tarp above it and 2 little tents and like a little.
No, this is when. So this is actually in another place when we did a big camera trapping project as well. So this is when you put those like little motion activated cameras up all over the forest. And that was like our temporary camp. So we'd walk for like a couple of days and then set up a temporary camp and then try and find places around that camp where we could put up cameras. And that was actually the hardest. That is the hardest fieldwork I've ever done.
It looks so very cozy.
It's just like carrying all your stuff on your back, and then like I don't know if you can see in the photos that the research assistants I worked with were amazing, and they could like build that. You can see like a bench and like a little table that they made out of like tiny branches. Those guys were amazing, but it was pretty horrible conditions. Often, so once. Yeah, so sometimes the really bad things were when like either the ants found you or the wasps found you.
Oh,
if the ants came, it was just like the whole floor was covered in ants, and they were like biting fire ants.
Oh my gosh,
It's not great,
that's
and not
horrible.
great at night as well, and they sneak into your tent. But usually you can like, they don't like fire, so you can get them with like the embers of the fire.
Oh,
But the
okay.
wasps were horrendous. Like sometimes the wasps would just find the camp, and there'd be like 400 wasps just flying around the camp, and I'd like hide in my tent, and I'd
Oh
be
my
in my tent, be
gosh.
like, I need to go make some food. I don't want to go out and make food because I'll be stung. And then I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna make my food. I'm gonna get stung a few times, and then I'd like run to the river and lie in the river eating my food because
Oh
the
my
wasps
god,
can't bite you when you're in the
that's
river.
horrible.
Yeah, that was quite grim, but worth it in the end. We got some like great camera trap footage of gorillas,
Yes,
but
so
that
here's
was hard.
I have a photo
That was
up
hard.
of what looks like a camera trap. You setting up a camera trap. Very cool.
Yes. So that's what we were doing when we were kind of camping. That was kind of the goal, was to find these areas where we could put up these camera traps.
That's awesome.
And it's a really cool area where the gorillas there, they like feed on roots. So they dig around, there's these really big trees called Marantus glabra, and they dig up the roots of those trees and they kind of clear the whole area around the tree, which makes it great for us to camera trap there because you can actually see stuff rather than like really dense forest where you don't see anything.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was the goal. So that's why we had those camps when we were just kind of trekking around the forest. But it wasn't all terrible. I mean, sometimes there were ants, sometimes there were wasps, but sometimes there was like a chimpanzee troop nearby, and you could kind of hear them at night. And like just actually
crazy.
camping in the proper forest where there's like no one around was pretty incredible.
That sounds amazing and terrifying. Great, thank
Yeah,
you for
yeah.
the thank you for the $50.
I think that's
And
the goal.
Simp Mom with $30. Thank you so much. Oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought. No. Oh, I was gonna ask you. So studying Daichi with $52. That brought us to $900. Thank you.
Whoa!
Yeah, it's going up
That is
really
insane.
fast. Yeah. Thank you guys so
Wow.
much for your donations. I appreciate it a lot. So studying gorilla behavior, what's important about doing that?
I mean, there's lots of angles for kind of why it's interesting. So one is that like it helps us understand our own behavior better and kind of how we evolved. But there's also like lots of conservation reasons for why it's important. So one thing I look at is kind of how different gorillas interact with each other, and we can use these like networks that I build based on how often they're interacting with each other to look at how disease outbreaks would spread through a group. And so which gorillas are at the most risk of different diseases and at what sort of times, and kind of if there was an outbreak, what would be the most useful thing to do to try and kind of prevent them all catching a disease. That's one thing. The other thing is that kind of social relationships are really important for our health and our immune system and even our survival. So like in humans, it's as important as things like alcohol, smoking, obesity, physical inactivity. All of those things are really important for our health, but our social relationships are actually just as important. And so we can study this in gorillas and learn about kind of what types of social relationships are really important for them and what helps them improve their health, and kind of what sort of decisions do they make in their like social environments that improve their health and their fitness.
Okay.
All of those sorts of things.
That's so interesting. And I read I didn't read very deep into it, but it's far more complex than most people think. Their dynamics.
Yeah, so in the past, I mean, partly it's just because it's really hard to study gorillas. So people kind of studied the dynamics going on within a single group. And then what we found in kind of the last 5 years or so is actually there's a lot of complexity in how they interact with other neighboring groups. And so they do seem to have kind of preferences in who they interact with, which other groups that they interact with. And that can influence kind of how they share their home ranges with those other groups. And it can also influence whether they're aggressive or not. And so things like infanticide is really common in gorillas. And that's when kind of a male, either a solitary male or a male from another group, will be really aggressive when they kind of interact with another group, and they'll end up killing some of the really young gorillas, which is obviously really awful and terrible, really difficult for the kind of conservation, because if we lose all of these young gorillas, then it's hard for the population to increase. So studying kind of what kind of spatial dynamics are going on, what sort of social dynamics are going on when those sorts of things happen. Like maybe how much space do gorillas really need to kind of minimize that sort of thing.
See. Cool. Also, one of the things that I found really interesting on the website that's in your Twitter bio, this top like bolded thing that says some gorilla social bonds may be analogous to old friendships and tribes in humans. So it's like it goes past that generation. It's like passed on. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, so they can be really long lasting. So one thing we found in some of the research we're doing quite recently is that like gorilla groups, when they get really big, they can end up splitting apart. Mm-hmm. But those kind of the sort of friendships between those groups that have split apart actually stay for kind of years afterwards. So we found kind of 10 years down the line, those gorilla groups were still much more friendly to each other than groups that hadn't split from each other. So it seems like it's not just kind of those individuals when they're together, but it's also like the offspring of those individuals are kind of learning that that's a friendly group. And
that's so interesting.
Those guys, but not those other guys around the corner because we don't like them.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Silly, thank you for the $5. Meg with $20. Mad with $20. $945. Thank you so much. Okay, so there have been lots of questions. Wait, did we go through all these pictures? Okay, you also sent a photo of, is this the school? The Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund International?
Yes. Is this the picture and there's just like loads of people?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is one of the things I really love about Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund is that it's so many people, and it blows my mind how many people. So this is just everyone that's doing kind of the day-to-day work, and it's like all of the people patrolling the forest, making sure there's no poachers, people working in the communities doing the education. It's people like me doing kind of all the science in the background, like logging all of the data and analyzing stuff. And there's so many people, and like places I've worked before, there's been maybe like 4 or 5 people trying gorillas, and here it's like there's like 100 of us.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So we can follow all of these different groups, and we know everything about what they're doing. And it just blows my mind that there's so many of us, and also that I'm just like this tiny cog, and there's all these people collecting amazing data about gorillas and learning about gorillas, and I get to do fun stuff with all of that data. But it's like I'm chatting to you here now, but everything I do is for like all of those people, what they're doing every day.
Right. Such a cool organization. If you are just getting here, if you didn't see the introduction, the donations today are going to the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. You can do Command Org if you want to get to their website. If you want to get to Robin's socials, you can do Command Guest. So yeah, that's what we're talking about today. Okay, so there have been lots of questions. Oh my gosh, lots of questions that have come through the chat. I hadn't opened the doc until now. Okay, so maybe we can go through some of these, and let me find a good one to start with. Max asked, what's your favorite type of gorilla? Maybe a hard question.
Oh, I can't choose. Don't make me choose.
Well, how many are there? I actually don't know that much.
Good. That's a very good question. So there's 4.
Okay.
So there's 2 species and then 4 subspecies.
Okay.
And so there's the cross river gorilla and the western gorilla in Western Africa. There we go. And then there's the mountain gorillas and the grouse gorillas in Eastern Africa. And I started with the western gorillas, and I loved that. I mean, that's where I began. I love those guys. They taught me everything I know. And then I was a bit of a traitor, and I went over to the mountain gorillas. The mountain gorillas are like fluffier, and they're a little bit bigger, and they're the ones most people have heard of. So I think of them as like the popular gorillas. So I feel bad for abandoning the western gorillas, which I also love. But I love them both. I can't choose. Don't make me choose.
You don't have to. That's completely fine. Here are the 2. Oh, I'm in the way. I'm trying to show a picture of what we're talking about here. Very cool. Oh, they are fluffy.
They're
How
so
cool.
fluffy, like insanely fluffy.
Do they differ in
Yeah, that was
size,
a little bit bigger.
or are they about the same?
Pardon?
Do they differ in size, or are they about the same size?
Yeah, so mountain gorillas are a little bit bigger.
Okay.
And they're massive. Like, I forget every time I go and I see them and I'm like, whoa, you're really big. And I went with like a tourist group the other day and they were like, you study these guys, you know they're big. And I was like, yeah, but I forget. They're just so big.
What's a good size comparison? Or how much do they weigh? Do you know?
I think it's 300 kilograms. So I think it's like 500 pounds is really...
That's a lot. And like muscular too. Like
yeah.
large.
Yeah, well that's the thing. Cool. They're like the same height as me when they're like on their legs, on their front legs. But they're like also about 4 times as wide.
Right.
Yeah, like the adult males, they're just crazy.
That is crazy. Let's see. We got... Okay. That was one of the questions. Okay, so this is kind of a broad question, but Bertel asked, how do most gorillas communicate with each other? It's a big question.
No, that's a great question. So they're pretty vocal. They make a lot of noises.
Okay.
One of the reasons like that is what they rely on is because a lot of them are in really dense forest, and they're also in these quite big groups. So they live in these groups of maybe like 10 to 20, but they can be up to kind of 40, 50, even 65 is the largest gorilla group we've ever seen, ever observed. And they all move together, basically. So they're trying to kind of stay in contact the whole time, and they're moving around together in this really dense forest. And so you can't really rely on things like just seeing them all, or like seeing them like do gestures or that sort of thing. So so there's a lot of vocalizations.
Okay.
And then over big distances is the chest beat, which isn't like this with open palms, if you're ever wondering how to do a gorilla chest beat. And those are amazing because they can carry like 2 kilometers. So
really?
Them to communicate between different groups.
Holy cow. I didn't know
and
that.
Within the group, there's a whole range of different sounds they make. But yeah, it's mostly vocalizations.
Rigby tipped $100. Lactic tipped $20, and yeah, okay, cool tipped $55. That's brought us over 1K to $1,120. Those are big donations. Thank you. Rigby with 100. Thank you so much. Okay, very cool. So there have been a couple questions about, and I've lost them. There have been a couple questions about the Harambe incident and how it has affected people's view of gorillas. I can't find the questions themselves right now, but wait, let's see if I can. Okay, so did the Harambe stuff have a real impact on how gorillas are viewed?
I don't know. I'm trying. I guess it kind of went both ways, right? So people went, oh, maybe gorillas are really aggressive. Maybe they could hurt a child. And then other people being like, why are we keeping them in zoos? What are we doing? I don't think it changed people's minds particularly. I think it kind of brought it to the forefront of what people were thinking about a bit.
Okay.
Yeah. No.
I hadn't really thought about that question either. I just seen it a couple times. Brad, thank you for the $5.
I mean, in the wild, so working with them in the wild where they have like a lot of space, one of the things I love about working with gorillas is they really tell you when they're annoyed. Like they will know and you can clear out the way and that's fine. But like in a confined space, like it is quite dangerous to have such a massive gorilla.
Yeah. A very unfortunate situation there. Okay, so Boreal asked, does the group have a leader? And if it does, how do they decide who it is?
Yes. So it is the largest male. Well, it's the dominant male, which is often the largest male. So in a lot of gorilla groups, there'll just be one adult male, and he is the leader, and then kind of females join this specific adult male, and they build their kind of family group around this male. But then in mountain gorillas, you actually get multi-male groups, and this is because kind of a lot of the males reach adulthood and then they don't leave, they stick around, and so then you get kind of multiple males in the same group.
Mm-hmm.
And it's then about kind of who's the most dominant male, and you see these kind of dominant interactions between males where they're kind of trying to show how big and strong they are, and it's kind of whoever comes out on top. But it is also about who the females want to be the leader to some extent. So females can choose to leave, and if there's a dominant male in charge that they don't like, then they're more likely to leave. So it's kind of a fine balance of like, who does the group want, and also who's kind of the most dominant, the strongest.
Wow.
Yeah. And actually one thing we found recently is actually females tend to prefer males that are really good at caring for their offspring. So it's not just the males that are kind of the biggest and the strongest, but it's also the ones that are really good at caring for baby gorillas. So there's a lot of important skills.
That's so interesting. Okay, another question that we have here. Riz had asked, is there a certain age gorillas tend to stick to the ground? I feel like I never see adult gorillas in trees, but babies are there all the time.
Yeah. And I mean, it's mostly kind of the problems of gravity when you're a 300-pound gorilla, right? So when a lot of the time when I was working in kind of groups, what I'd see is like the young ones go up, and then the dad sits at the bottom and he waits for stuff to fall down. But they do still go up sometimes. So I've seen it a couple of times, but it'll be on like the big, strong, sturdy trees.
I hope so.
But yeah, I mean, females still go up even when they're adults. So I don't think they ever stop. But it depends on the habitat, the type of trees. And yeah, the adult males they reach adulthood around about 12, and that's when they get pretty big. And I personally wouldn't want to be under a tree that one of them was in.
Yeah, no kidding. I can't imagine looking up at a gorilla in a tree above me.
It is amazing though. I've seen them like go sliding down, and you're like, how are you doing that? They're so heavy, but they're doing it somehow.
But you guys didn't have much conflict when you were doing the research between you guys and the gorillas. You kind of kept your space.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question. Is that like,
did the gorillas mostly leave you guys alone? You just watch from afar?
Like in the camp? Oh,
yes.
Okay. So our goal was to kind of go and study the gorillas. So we kind of go into their space.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, so when I first started studying a group, one of the jobs is to kind of try and get gorillas used to humans. And that stage can be really tricky. Because you like, they're letting you into their space. And so I had a couple of instances where kind of the dominant male would charge us, and we go, okay, these gorillas aren't enjoying this today. We're gonna leave for now. We'll come back tomorrow, see how that goes, right? Mm-hmm. Because they've got to let you in. You can't force your way into a gorilla. Right? They've got to accept you. But with the mountain gorillas, those gorillas were habituated to humans, like in the city. So all of those gorillas have grown up around humans, and they're they're just so used to humans that if anything, we have the opposite problem where we're trying to stay kind of further back.
Yeah.
So that we're kind of not invading their space, and they'll just be like, oh, I want to go over there. And you're like, oh, okay. And it was just silverback male comes right past. You're like, oh no, I'm trying to like climb into this tree to move further away from you.
Okay.
But no kind of issues of like aggression or like being in danger at all. Like gorillas are really good at letting you know when you've annoyed them, and then you can just give them their space.
Okay.
Well, like, that's how I found it.
Scott, thank you for the $50 donation. So I think a lot of people do have the perception of that, like, or that image of aggression. One of the questions that was asked by Bertel was, what are some common misconceptions about gorillas?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's exactly that they're like these really kind of aggressive, dominant animals. And yeah, they are totally massive for sure. But they're like just super chilled vegetarians, right? They live off They just move around. Like
Yeah, people don't think about that part very often.
The gorilla day is they wake up in the morning, they walk a bit, they'll eat some food, they'll nap, they'll walk some more, and they'll nap, and then they'll eat some food, and that's it.
Mhm.
And then they find a new place to build a nest at night, and then they go to bed. And like 99% of their day is just like napping and walking and sleeping and feeding.
Mhm.
Then sometimes, really rarely, they'll get aggressive, but yeah, they're mostly incredibly chilled out. And even when, so once I got charged by a dominant male because I don't know, his family got annoyed. I think we were maybe too close. Maybe he needed a bit more space, but he charged. And I was terrified because that was the closest, like it's the most aggression I'd ever had from kind of a gorilla before. And I was like, oh no, just super angry. And then he just walked off like 2 meters, sat down and started munching, which is like, yeah, I've shown you, now you're gonna back away. And it's like immediately super chilled, munching away, having a nap right next to us. And we're like, okay, so it was just a warning, just like keeping us on our toes. Maybe it's okay.
Jeez, that's terrifying.
When they're angry, they're like a minute away from being chilled out again and just eating.
So speaking of them eating, Ad Holland had asked what's in an average gorilla diet?
A lot of leaves.
Yeah.
A lot of leaves. So mountain gorillas rely much more on leaves than fruit. So they eat like basically just kind of stems, a little bit of bamboo. And a lot of leaves. And then Western gorillas eat a lot more fruit. So they'll have all these different types of fruit that they're also eating. But again, they also like the kind of the backup option is kind of leaves. A lot of leaves. Some ants. They might mix.
I didn't know that.
But that's about, yeah. And roots in that one population I studied.
That's right. Very
cool. But it's mostly leaves. They're basically, vegetarians. And they eat some ants.
Okay.
Not a lot.
Okay, so there are two interesting questions here, but I don't have a very good segue, but I'm just going to ignore that I don't have a good segue and ask that. Mulch asks, can gorillas really use sign language, or is that a scam?
Oh, I mean, that is a long debate. They can definitely learn it, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. But like the debate is really around like what their thought processes are behind it when they use it. Like, have they learned that like they do these signs and then they'll get food?
Right.
Or do they really understand the like words they're forming when they make the gestures? And I'm not an expert in it, and it is fascinating. Like you can see, I've definitely gone down a whole load of like YouTube holes looking at all these different videos, trying to figure it out. And it's so hard. And it goes into that whole area of science where we'll really never know what another animal is thinking, or even what another human is really thinking. Like we can never know for sure. So,
you could think about it all day. Whoever asked that question, there you go. Just think about it all day. I've talked about that on stream sometimes with parrots. I worked at a parrot sanctuary, and the amount that they talk and whether it's like they know what they're saying or if it's just because they've seen people say it in that situation. African
grey parrots are incredible.
Oh my gosh, they're amazing.
Like maybe they do. I don't know.
Yeah. I told my stream this story one time of when I was working there, and we had an Amazon parrot, and I asked if he wanted to go outside because we'd bring them to outside perches, and he said no, and I was like, why? And he said it's cold out there, and I was like, you're right. You're right, it is cold out there. But that was like the weirdest experience I've had with animal language by far.
Yeah, and then you're like, maybe they just got lucky, and it's the one thing that I remembered, or maybe they really.
Yeah, it totally could be like staff has gone in there and they're like, you want to go outside? It's kind of cold. Like it's cold outside, like that kind of thing. But it was bizarre.
Ooh.
That's a good question. Thank you.
I wish I knew.
Tyron, thank you for the $75 bottle string with $3. We're at $1,253.01. So thank you so much. Okay, and then the second interesting question. We had our last podcast was with an anti-poaching manager in South Africa. So we talked about poaching a little bit last week, but the question that Roasted asked was, why are gorillas even poached?
Yeah. I mean, they used to be poached for people who were trying to get them kind of for the pet trade. and for zoos. And then there's this really kind of grim fashion of having like gorillas' hands as ashtrays.
Ew, what? I've never heard of that. That's horrible.
Yeah, it's not very nice. But nowadays it's not so much direct poaching on the gorillas.
Mm-hmm.
So basically everywhere I've worked, it's not people going in the forest trying to shoot gorillas. It's people going in the forest to try and shoot other things. So like trying to kind of get maybe some monkeys, that sort of thing, and then kind of in gorillas getting in the way and getting caught up in it, and then kind of having these aggressive interactions with poachers who are kind of shooting guns and they're kind of protect their family. That can be really problematic. And then the other thing is snares. So these kind of like wire traps that people use in the forest to catch like antelope, little deer, other things. But then gorillas then get caught in them. So they can get like their hand or their foot stuck in it.
Yes.
So I can often in the camera traps we'll see kind of leopards or gorillas that have lost kind of a hand or a foot from these snares, but also those wounds can get infected and gorillas can die that way. So it's not people kind of directly trying to kill the gorillas, but it's still really, really dangerous for them. And that's kind of the big poaching problem that we still have.
So poaching for like snares are for smaller bush meat then? Or
yeah.
Okay. And then
antelope, little dikers. Yeah, basically.
Koopa, thank you for the $50 donation. Okay, and then Impact asked, how do gorillas mourn the death of other gorillas?
That one is also really interesting. And we found they did a study on this kind of in the last few years, and there's only maybe kind of 6 incidents that we've actually seen. But what we see is that kind of gorillas will go and they'll kind of sit around and watch, and they'll be inquisitive. And that is actually a really big problem too, is that they'll kind of, a lot of them will kind of touch the body to see what's going on. And so if that other gorilla's died from something infectious, then that's really dangerous. And for the gorillas, if they were less inquisitive, because then they might not get infected. There's something going on. And again, it's this idea, like, we don't know if they're mourning the dead because we don't know what's going on inside their head. But we do know that they are kind of inquisitive and they are looking at it, if they find another gorilla that's died. And when the gorilla dies within their group, we've seen kind of some of those individuals will be really kind of lethargic and really kind of what appears to us as really sad for some days afterwards. But again, it's so hard to know like what that's really about and what's going on in their heads. But there's definitely something going on for sure.
That reminded me. I was interested when I was looking at your research earlier. One of the things I do wildlife rehab. One of the things that we struggle with a lot is like people anthropomorphizing animals, and like finding like a baby bird or something that's totally fine, but they're like, it's an orphan, like where its parents don't care about it, that kind of thing. But in your research, you walk a really interesting line of like comparing. So is that like a lens that you encourage? Does that help you to do your research, or is that something you try to avoid?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And it's like a really fine balance. So I think in science, we have this like one extreme where we're trying hard not to anthropomorphize.
Anthropomorphizing, I think we've talked about it before, but just to clarify, if you don't know what we're talking about, it's like projecting like human emotions on animals. That's where we are. Okay, I'm sorry. Continue.
Yeah, no, that's perfect explanation. So we're trying not to do that, right? But at the same time, when we're studying apes and other primates, we're actually really similar, right? So if you look at kind of evolutionary history, we've got like 3.5 billion years of life on Earth, and humans and gorillas have only been separate for like 9 million years of that. So there's all of this time where we've been evolving together, and so we're actually really, really similar. And so if it's kind of like, if you think about how good is a gorilla at hearing, well, we're really closely related to gorillas, and so their level of hearing is probably about the same as ours. unless that's something that's kind of changed really rapidly in the last few million years.
Right.
And so again, when we look at kind of what humans are like in this situation, and we can kind of compare to what's happening in gorillas, we don't want to anthropomorphize. And yet also, if we're kind of trying specifically saying, well, that's in humans, it can't possibly be in gorillas, then we're ignoring all of that time that we've been evolving together. So it's really, I have to be really careful, and we all, it's difficult for sure.
That's super interesting. Pasty tipped $20, Danny with $10.97. That maybe we have time for one more question here. Taran asked, is coltan mining still an issue when it comes to gorilla killings in the Congo, or do you know anything about that situation? I do not.
Yeah, so it is still a problem for kind of habitat. So basically, coltan, which is in phones, I actually don't know this in much detail, but one of the things that's mined to make smartphones, and it's in gorilla habitat. And so in order to get to it, they've got to destroy a whole bunch of gorilla habitat in order to get the coltan out, in order to make our smartphones. Yes, it is still a big problem in terms of kind of gorilla habitat. And some of the best things you can do are just kind of recycling your phones and making sure you don't buy more phones than you need. Right. Don't buy a phone if you don't need one. But yeah, it is still a problem.
I didn't know about that. Thank you for asking that question. That's cool. Okay, you guys asked so many questions. We got to more than I expected, honestly. So thank you for going through those with me. Even if it kind of like bounced around a little bit. But that was really neat. Tipsy with $20, Patience with $5. That's brought us to $1,358.98 today for the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund. Thank you so much for your time and for coming on and for your enthusiasm. That was so cool. There's so much.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we close up?
Oh, I don't know. No, I think you have said many things about gorillas.
Okay.
So so much for listening.
Great. You guys can do Command Guest if you want to follow Robin's socials. You can do Command Org if you want to check out the website and where these donations are going today. But I will send you some analytics after the stream so you can see like a little like the numbers and the reach and stuff like that. And I will give you the final donation amount at the end of the stream here.
Amazing.
Okay. Thank you so much again. This was awesome. I appreciate it a lot.
Aww. Thank you.
Okay, I'll talk with you soon.
Bye.
Bye. She's awesome. She's so nice. Dobbins, nice. Thank you. That was one of the, she was a really, really good guest. Super enthusiastic, super knowledgeable. Thank you for all the questions. Really good questions, as always. It took me a little while to go through them. And find the right ones. I'm still working on better segues to go from question to question, but it's hard because I obviously can't do any planning for that, you know. But anyway, thank you for that, and thank you for the insane amount of donations. $1,358 today. Are you kidding? And I said it last time too. It's crazy how many different people donate. Like, I know there are like $100 donations, but there are so many people that donate. So thank you so much. That's huge. It's so cool. And this podcast felt short. It did feel kind of short, didn't it? I think maybe because of the 2 intro videos. Yes, Dobbins. Good. It may have been, it may just be because the intro was long. But actually, the intro wasn't that long because I call them 10 to 15 minutes after the hour, and for her it was like 16 minutes after the hour. So it actually was like kind of the same. Maybe it felt shorter because we talked about the pictures for a while and it was less questions. I don't know. Podcasts used to be longer. Yes, they did. However, Ape Gang with $5, Dab with the tier 1, thank you. I find that a 45-minute conversation, at the beginning when I did the podcast, like, when it's with a friend or when it's with, like, Connor or Dobbins or whatever, or people that are on stream, they're used to sitting on stream to do, like, a 3-hour podcast and just, like, to chill and talk for that long. But people that, like, aren't live streamers and, like, normal people that have normal jobs, to ask them to do an interview that lasts longer than an hour is quite a lot. Patience, thank you for the $1.10. So I make the podcast an hour because that is what's reasonable for my guests. Not because I feel like that's a good amount of time, because honestly they could go longer. But yeah, that's why I do an hour, and that's why I'm also really strict about when I stop and when I start and when I stop, just for the guests, right? Rowdy, thank you for the $16. Okay, we have a quiz. True, way less ranting. Yeah, it's also a lot. Danny's right. It's a lot. I think it was Danny. It's a lot of information to digest. That too. So it being like 3 hours is, is a lot. Stream manager. Okay, so quiz. Chuck has written the questions. I have questions. Shut up, Dobbins. I have questions for you guys before I write the questions. About the questions. That wasn't me. Wait, what did you say? Maybe I misread. I'm not gonna go back. Okay. Question marks. Yeah, okay. So I have questions about the quiz. 1, do you want me to read the question out loud before it pops up? Because you have 20 seconds to answer it. Okay. I will try to read the question out loud before it pops up. 2nd, I think I know the answer to this, but you want us to avoid the double negatives, right? Avoid the questions that, like, which one is not. Yes. Okay. And units. If we have a question with units, do you want me to... That's not a double negative. I knew you were going to come at me for that. I knew when I said it, I was like, I'm misusing that term, and I was like, Dobbin's going to say something. I literally knew it. You're so annoying. Okay. When it comes to units, should I write, like, if it's like acres and hectares, should I just put both? Or if it's like, use real units only, you want me to use metrics? I just put what the guest said? Okay, we'll do that. We don't have questions with units that often anyway, so we'll just do what the guest used. So if they use metric. If they're US and they say something in inches, then we'll use inches. Cool? Alright. For Dobbins, all of these questions will be double negative. Oh my gosh. Which one of these is not correct? Okay, so the way the quiz works, I'll go over it again. 5 questions, 20 seconds per question. I will read the questions before they pop up. If you are not a sub to my channel, if you win the quiz, I will gift you a sub to my channel. Honestly, somebody else probably will, and then you'll get a sub somewhere else anyway. If you are already sub to my channel, then I will gift you a sub to a channel of your choice, or I'll donate an additional $5 to the Dian Fossey Gorilla Fund, which, again, I'm so happy that the donations are insane this week because it's just a really, really good organization. So thank you for that. Okay, give me a couple minutes to create the quiz. The questions are already written. It shouldn't take me more than the length of the intro song, but give me the length of the intro song. I will be back in 2 seconds. You need to manage access. You need to allow access if you participate in the quiz so that I can see your username. Because if you don't, then it'll just show me contestant number whatever, and then you won't be able to win because I won't know who you are. Understand? No, he didn't. Alright. Holy moly, Rowdy with $16, Lots with $50, Yo with $3. This brought us to $1,434.01. Thank you so much. Alright. Are you ready for the quiz? How do I... this. Save quiz. No? Did you take notes? They're all not questions. Thank you for the 5 months. Okay, here we go. Manage access. Are you prepared? Allow access. Okay, the first question, I don't know how fast this... Here. How do I do this? How am I going to do this? Okay, sending the rules to you guys. Here we go. The first question, I'm going to say it now, but it may be too early. The first question is, according to Dr. Morrison, how many Grauer gorillas are left? Is it 200, about 200? Is it about 10,000? Is it about 4,000? Or are they extinct? Do we get banned if we do bad? Yes. Okay. The correct answer is about 4,000. I hope they never go extinct. Me too, Space. Well done, 210 of you. 111 guessed about 200. I'm glad you're wrong. Okay, but who got that right the fastest? Crass. And then shitatsu, and then side ramen. Well done. Okay, the next question is, how many subspecies of gorillas are there? Are there 20? Are there 100? Are there 4? Or are there 12? Name them all, chat. Bonus question. You get no points. Western. Mountain. Okay, Dobbins. Dobbins, you're a professor. That's cheating. Western Lowland, Eastern Mountain, Trainwrecks TV.
Charging battery.
Oh my god. Why? Okay. The correct answer is 4. 169 of you got that correct. Well done. A professor that always loses the quizzes to Squid. Yeah, well. Oh, Squid. Squid, there's so much pressure now. I feel like you're choking because there's too much pressure. I'm sorry. Who got that right the fastest? Zast and then Ranger. Well done. Who's in the lead? Shitatsu. Nice. Next question is what species of gorilla is only found in the Democratic Republic of Congo? Is it the lowland gorilla? Is it the mountain gorilla? The growers? Or the cross river? That's a tough one. I forgot that one when I was pasting it in there. I was like, damn, I don't actually remember. I guess. The correct answer is grower. If you got it right, say me smile. Like 124 people said grower and 124 people said mountain. Damn. That's a tough question. I think that's the hardest question we have. The next question. No, who got it right? User. Okay. In the lead is... Look, Dobbins has an advantage given that he's been out there studying these gorillas. He's got... he's freaking... smurfing. The next question is... What interesting way can studying animal behavior be used for conservation? Does that question make sense? Why is studying gorilla behavior important for conservation? That was the way the question... Here, okay, does that make sense? Remember when I asked her... That's better? Okay. Why do people study gorilla conservation? Why do people study gorilla behavior? Why is that important for conservation? Does it help them to understand human behavior? Does that help gorilla conservation? Does it help them to predict disease outbreaks? Become omniscient? Or is studying animal behavior not useful for conservation? The correct answer is that it can help them predict disease outbreaks. Who got that right the fastest? Oh. Okay, this one's kind of tough because studying gorilla social behavior can help us to understand human behavior, but that's not one of the reasons that they study it for conservation. Doesn't help gorilla conservation. Who wrote these? I approved them. How about that? The scores. Hoey is in the lead. Dobbins is still in the lead. Somehow. Last question. Can someone pull ahead of Dobbins? The last question is, what is the most common food that mountain gorillas eat? Is it fish? Is it pizza? Is it leaves? Is it rodents? Big time, Danny. Well done. The correct answer is leaves. Holy moly. Nice. Dobbins is out. He said pizza. The 352 people got leaves. Who won the quiz today? Dobbins. Dobbins won the quiz. Alright, what do you want, Dobbins? Rigged? Dobbins is a quantitative ecologist who has been out there studying gorillas. He studies gorillas. He has done camera traps. Community event. It's rigged. Rigged! Okay, I can't see what Dobbins wants though. What do you want? You want a gifted sub to somebody else, or you want another $5 to the organization? Oh my god, chat. This actually looks like Mrs. Chat. I can't do it. Oh my god. Dobbins. Thank you. Oh my. I was not gonna read to you what he said. He said, Dobbins said, F the gorillas, hit me up with that pokey sub. And then he said, JK, give it to the gorillas. Locke, can you add an additional $5 to the donation bar? Thank you. Alright. Well done on the quiz today. Cal, I don't owe you anything. What do I owe you for? Zeusing? You didn't Zeus anybody. You Zeus your own teammate. It doesn't count. Is that owl or whatever still alive still? Okay. So. Decent questions this week, Chuck. Thank you, Chuck, for the questions today. Thank you for your help with that. I really appreciate it. It's a lot to juggle. I love having one thing less to juggle during the podcast. Thank you, Will, for making the intro screen. It's very, very nice today. Look at it. Look how pretty it is. Ooh, gorillas. Thank you, Locke, for the stream element stuff, as always. Appreciate it. And thank you, all of you, for your donations. One question was... It's tough to write 5 good questions, okay? So, be kind. But they are good questions. I like the quiz. It's a good time. So, yeah, it is, Riz. I was getting there. I have a red tail right now, that I don't know if I want to show you yet. I'll look at her. I have a red tail from the rehab center who came in because she got hit by a car and then she got attacked by a dog when she was on the ground in shock from the head trauma. Rough day. So she's not in good shape at all. She doesn't have anything broken and there are no open wounds. But she's just got really, really bad head and neck trauma. So she got pain meds, now she's on an anti-inflammatory, and I'm tubing her, every 2 to 4 hours. But I tubed her this morning and she wasn't digesting. Yesterday I tubed her and, she threw it up, which is not good for birds. So I moved away from the formula and just tubed Pedialyte, and she was able to keep that down. She was able to keep down what I tubed last night, and there was a little bit of formula in there, so that was good, but this morning she's not digesting again. So let me look at her and see if I can show you her. I don't know. She's not in good shape, and I honestly, like, her chances are very low. To be honest, the only reason that I brought her home is because we had to tube Bean when he came in. He was weak to the point where we didn't have to use gloves to handle him because he was, like, basically dead weight. Like, he wasn't trying to foot at all. He couldn't. And we tubed him for about a week. And obviously you guys know what happened with Bean. When I went to work the other day, they were gonna euthanize her. And I figured she isn't, I mean, Bean was kind of like this and I tubed, so, like, maybe that's why I took her home. But she is worse off than he was, so I'm not very confident. Prognosis is not good, but let me look at her and see if I can show you guys. I'm gonna have to tube right when I get off anyway. Hold on. Hyper. So she doesn't look very good. She was kind of in the middle of a molt, so you can see her tail's pretty uneven. You can see her molt and the tail feathers under. But she's just super, super weak. I've been tubing her when her crop is empty, but she's just not digesting. Like, I tubed her, the last time I tubed her was at 10. And her crop is still kind of full. She's got, her eye is swollen on this side, so she can't fully open this eye. But, yeah. So, I'm just hoping that she keeps down what I tubed this morning. Sky, thank you. And then I'll be able to tube her in, like, a couple hours. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, it makes me super sad, so it's been tough having her here because of the shape that she's in. But I'll keep you guys posted. We'll see. There is one other thing that I'd like to share with you before I get off today. This is, if you remember Lizzie Dally, she was a guest on the podcast. She is the BBC videographer. You remember that? Remember her? Very nice lady. So she's been sharing this petition. It is a petition to stop the import of shark fins in the UK. And they need 100,000 signatures by the 11th of September. It is getting up there. You're only allowed to sign it. It has 72,000 signatures. You're only allowed to sign it if you are a citizen of the UK. But if you are, here's the link. If you'd be willing to sign that, that would be wonderful. Go to Lizzie's page if you want more information about this petition, but essentially there's a loophole where you can import like a lot of shark fins into the UK. And we talked about sharks with Dr. David Schiffman a while ago. We'll talk about them again soon. Spoiler. And the shark conservation crisis is one of the biggest. What was the word that he used? It's one of the most devastating, like, conservation crises that just nobody knows about. Sharks are really, really struggling, so this is really important. If you're willing to sign that, please do. And I think that's it for today. Wait. I didn't see that he did this. That's so nice. That's gonna look like I'm gonna put a normal heart on it later, because it's gonna look like a lesson 3. Okay. Thank you. Huh? Won't it show up as a lesson 3, or will it become a heart if I put it? Because there's like an emoji heart that's like the shiny one, and then there's the like weird one. Yes, but it's a heart still? Okay, I'll just do it. Less than 3. Don't worry about it. That's really nice. I didn't see that he did that. Did I just... No, I did. Twitter is so confusing. That was a tier 3 sub. I know. I saw that. Sky, thank you for the tier 3. Great stream. Thanks for the donos. Great org. Yeah, for sure, Dobbins. Thank you for introducing her to me. She was wonderful. Thank you for that sub. Okay. Now's not the time, Riz. Outro. Okay. I started working in... I'm live.
Oh, you're not done with the podcast?
Not quite. I'm just playing my outro.
Oh, okay. Alright, call me when you're done.
Okay, bye.
Wait, you want something cool?
You're on speaker?
Yeah, you want something cool?
Sure. Don't swear.
Zip right here.
I know that.
Is that sick?
Yeah.
He just threw away about like 50% of our fridge because it was about 50% mold.
Gotta love Simply.
Yep, he just cleaned our entire fridge because he's like, this place is disgusting and you guys live like slobs, so.
Love that. Okay.
Alright, bye.
Bye. Great. Alright. Imagine leaving Sip Mom for Miz. Thank you for watching today. Oh, hi, Gabby. We're so excited that he's back. We are so excited. Okay, so thank you guys for watching today. She was absolutely, thanks. She was absolutely wonderful. Great guest, great organization, solid podcast. Those of you who are here every week for the podcast, it means the freaking world to me. This podcast is like my baby. I love it so much. So thank you for letting me do that. Twitch is an untapped reservoir for doing good. I will see you guys on tomorrow. If there are storms tomorrow, if there aren't storms tomorrow, yes, tomorrow I think I'm gonna release 6 cottontails. I have 6 cottontails to release and maybe a raven, depending on how the raven's doing tomorrow. He's flying like a couple inches off the ground, and he was hit by a car, so he's got some head trauma, but we're just waiting for him to like recuperate. So if the raven is good to go tomorrow, then I'll do the raven, but I think I'm for sure doing the 6 cottontails tomorrow as long as the weather allows. So I will probably see you guys tomorrow for a release stream. Rowdy with the $10.99 to round us off to $1,450. Thank you guys so much. I will see you tomorrow. If it's not tomorrow, then I will see you on Monday. Bye. Bye. In exotics, 4 years ago or something like that? Working at zoos and getting internships and stuff like that. Then I fell in love with Moxie doing a bounty? Zoos that I interned at.
One of the most popular streamers right now.
This is Jupiter. He's 8 barn owl.
That is insane! Can you write his name? I always spell it wrong.
Yo, 1.3K.
Thank you guys
you.
for donating. Thank you for
I'm literally tearing up. Because, alright, this is not supposed to happen!
But I was talking to Twitch is an untapped reservoir for doing good. I will send you this cute thank you card. It has some names of some donators and some viewers on it.
That's awesome.
And I'll tweet this out to you.
We're super excited. 22, that's awesome.
Those of you who donate, thank you so much. It means the world to me, and it means the world to those guests. It's still really important that you're here and that you're watching, and that's amazing also. Thank you guys.